You won't share the fee with them, will you?
No, not at all, no.
George, how long have you been at Arsenal?
Well, this is my 10th season now, Jimmy.
And how do you feel the club has progressed in that time? I mean, are Arsenal as great now, as good as they've ever been?
Well, in that time, I've certainly seen good individuals, but this team at the present time is the best I've played in.
What is there about the team that makes it extra special?
Well, just the spirit in the team. Everybody's fighting for one another. That's about it, you know, they've got faith in each other, and there's a lot of skill in the team, actually, as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because someone...
Bertie Mee was a legendary yet ruthless figure in football, known for his iron discipline and zero tolerance for defiance. Behind the trophies and success stood a man who never forgot a slight. Let me ask you one thing. If you like this video and enjoy these untold football stories, then please make sure to like and subscribe. May believed respect mattered more than talent. Once a player crossed his line, there was rarely a way back. Bertie Mee's clashes with players were built on authority and control. He demanded absolute obedience inside the dressing room. Any challenge to his decisions was seen as rebellion. Mee ruled through discipline, not comfort. Players either followed his rules or faced the consequences. This mindset shaped many of his fiercest grudges. One player on Mee's hated list earned that place by openly questioning his decisions. Public criticism was unforgivable in Mee's. He believed disagreements should stay behind closed doors. The situation quickly became toxic. Trust disappeared and communication broke down. From that moment, the relationship was beyond repair. Another name on the list belonged to a player whose discipline constantly failed him. Despite clear talent, his poor timekeeping and weak training effort infuriated Mee. He believed bad habits spread quickly through a squad. Mee refused to compromise his standards. Talent could not outweigh attitude. Eventually, this player was pushed aside. The third player clashed with Mee purely because of personality. Strong opinions and a fearless attitude led to constant arguments. Mee viewed outspoken players as a threat to unity. Tension grew with every disagreement. Their relationship became hostile and strained. Respect was lost on both sides. The final player crossed Mee's ultimate red line through off-field behavior. Negative attention and embarrassment to the club were unacceptable. Mee believed players represented the badge at all times. Once that image was damaged, forgiveness was impossible. He acted decisively and without emotion. The door was firmly closed. These four players revealed the harsh reality of Bertie Mee's leadership style. He created champions, but ruled with fear and authority. Careers were shaped and sometimes broken under his watch. His grudges left lasting scars. Yet his legacy remains powerful and controversial. Bertie Mee never compromised his principles. Frank McLintock was not just another player under Bertie Mee. He was the club captain and the heartbeat of Arsenal's defense. As a leader on the pitch, McLintock commanded respect from teammates and fans alike. However, his authority sometimes clashed with Mee's rigid control. Disagreements behind the scenes slowly eroded their relationship. Mee ultimately made the bold call to strip McLintock of the captaincy. It was a decision that shocked the dressing room. The removal of McLintock as captain symbolized a deeper power struggle at Arsenal. Mee believed no player, not even the captain, could challenge his authority. McLintock, used to leading by voice and presence, found himself sidelined. Trust between manager and captain collapsed. The situation became impossible to repair. Soon after, Mee decided to move him on. The captain's era at Arsenal was over. In 1973, Frank McLintock was sold to Queen's Park Rangers, ending his influential spell at the club. Many supporters felt the decision weakened Arsenal's core leadership. Mee's authority may have been preserved, but the squad lost a proven leader. The dressing room felt the absence immediately. McLintock's departure marked the beginning of a wider breakdown. It was a turning point that many still debate. Mee attempted to replace McLintock by signing Jeff Blockley. Blockley was expected to step into an enormous leadership role. The pressure was intense and immediate. Unfortunately, the signing did not deliver the stability Mee hoped for. Performances suffered and confidence dropped. Fans quickly turned against the decision. Jeff Blockley struggled to live up to the expectations placed upon him. Compared to McLintock, his presence lacked authority and assurance. Mistakes on the pitch amplified criticism from supporters. Mee's judgment was questioned openly. Instead of restoring order, the change created uncertainty. This failed replacement deepened the growing unrest around Mee's leadership. Another major flashpoint came with the signing of Alan Ball in 1971. Mee broke the British transfer record to bring him to Arsenal. The move was intended to inject motivation and fresh energy into the squad. Ball arrived as a huge name with immense experience. Expectations were sky-high from the start. Mee believed this signing would push Arsenal forward. However, Alan Ball never fully settled into Arsenal's existing structure. The team that had achieved double success relied heavily on balance and chemistry. Ball's style and role did not naturally fit into that system. Some players felt the harmony was disrupted. The squad dynamic began to shift. Subtle tensions started to appear. While Ball worked hard, questions lingered about his true impact. Some believe the record signing added pressure rather than inspiration. Mee's gamble did not pay off as expected. Instead of strengthening unity, it highlighted cracks within the team. The double-winning side slowly began to fragment. Friction followed both on and off the pitch. Ray Kennedy's story was even more painful for Arsenal supporters. He was a vital part of the double-winning team and a fan favorite. Kennedy embodied strength, consistency, and big-game presence. Yet his relationship with me reportedly deteriorated. Disagreements over roles and treatment became increasingly serious. The trust between them faded. Kennedy's exit from Arsenal shocked many fans. Losing such an important player felt unnecessary and damaging. Soon after leaving, he joined Liverpool and achieved tremendous success. His trophies at Anfield made Arsenal's decision look even worse in hindsight. For many, this confirmed me. Rogerty had cost the club dearly. The sense of regret only grew with time. Charlie George was another symbol of Arsenal's internal conflict, a local hero with natural flair. George represented creativity and confidence. Mee's strict management style clashed with George's expressive personality. Discipline issues and disagreements became frequent. Mee preferred control, while George thrived on freedom. Their relationship steadily deteriorated despite his talent. Charlie George found himself increasingly marginalized. Mee showed little patience for players who challenged his authority. Eventually, George was sold, leaving many supporters frustrated. They felt the club was losing its identity. The sale marked another step away from the glory days. Arsenal was changing rapidly. As these departures mounted, the squad began to lose its core strength. Leadership, creativity, and experience were all walking out the door. Mee's hardline approach left little room for compromise. Each decision seemed to isolate the dressing room further. Results began to reflect the instability. Confidence within the club faded. The latter years of Bertie Mee's reign were defined by conflict rather than success. The sale of key players weakened the team's foundation. Supporters questioned the direction of the club. Mee's authority, once admired, now felt suffocating. The atmosphere around Arsenal grew increasingly tense. Mee remained firm in his beliefs despite mounting criticism. He felt discipline and control were essential, even as results declined. However, the cost of constant disputes became impossible. To ignore Arsenal no longer resembled the dominant force of earlier years. The gap between past glory and present reality widened. By 1976, the pressure surrounding Bertie Mee was overwhelming. The team had lost its edge, and the unity was gone. Disputes with players had taken a heavy toll. Mee recognized the situation was no longer sustainable. His resignation marked the end of an era. It was a quiet exit. After years of turbulence, Bertie Mee's legacy remains deeply complex. He built a legendary team but later dismantled it through conflict. His disputes with star players reshaped Arsenal's future. Some decisions still divide opinion today. Love him or criticize him, Mee's impact is undeniable. His reign serves as a powerful lesson in leadership and control. Bertie Mee's story reminds us that success and conflict often walk hand in hand in football. His rise to glory was built on discipline, but his fall was shaped by disputes. The same authority that created champions eventually pushed stars away. That balance between control and trust defined his legacy. Few managers have left such a complicated mark on a club when you look back at Arsenal's decline in the mid-1970s. These player conflicts stand out clearly. Losing leaders like McClintock and Kennedy weakened the squad's identity. Creativity faded after Charlie George's exit. Even bold moves like signing Alan Ball failed to heal the cracks. The double-winning spirit slowly disappeared. Some fans still argue Mee was right to stand firm. Others believe flexibility could have saved the team. The debate continues decades later. His decisions shaped not just results, but careers. Arsenal's history changed because of these moments. That is why his reign remains so fascinating. Bertie Mee proved that strong leadership can inspire greatness. But he also showed how stubbornness can accelerate decline. Football is not only about tactics, but people. Managing personality is as important as managing games. Mee mastered one side but struggled with the other. The consequences were lasting. The players who left Arsenal under Mee went on to write new chapters elsewhere. Their success only intensified the questions around his choices. Could things have been different with compromise? Or was conflict inevitable? These unanswered questions keep the story alive. History still judges those decisions. If you enjoy deep dives into football history and the untold stories behind legendary teams, stay connected to the channel. These stories reveal what headlines often miss. Football's past is filled with lessons, and there are many more waiting to be explored. Your support keeps these stories coming. Bertie Mee's reign may have ended in resignation, but his influence never truly faded. His triumphs and failures are forever linked. Arsenal was shaped by his discipline and divided by his disputes. That duality defines his legacy, and it ensures his story will always be remembered. Ian Rush is going through a deeply painful period in his life, facing sadness that goes far beyond football. The Liverpool legend, known for his strength and winning mentality, has recently suffered the loss of his brother Gerald, a figure who went everything to him on a personal level. As he continues to process that heartbreak, the football world was shaken again by the passing of current Liverpool player Diogo Jota. These losses have created a heavy emotional burden for Rush, connecting his personal grief with the club that defined his life. If you appreciate honest football stories like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more meaningful content. For Ian Rush, Liverpool has always been more than a badge at his family. The loss of his brother Gerald has left a space in Ian Rush's life that can never truly be filled. Gerald knew Ian long before the goals, the trophies, and the worldwide recognition. He was a constant presence, offering support during difficult moments and celebrating success away from the spotlight. Losing a sibling changes a person in ways that are difficult to explain. For Rush, it means losing a part of his foundation, someone who kept him grounded despite the pressures of fame. This grief is personal, quiet, and deeply lasting. As Ian Rush was still coping with that personal tragedy, the death of Diogo Jota added another layer of sorrow. Jota represented the modern Liverpool spirit, admired for his work ethic and commitment to the club. Although they belonged to different generations, the Liverpool connection made the loss feel close to home. For Rush, it was a reminder that football is not just about competition, but about people and relationships. The pain of seeing the club mourn again reopened emotional wounds. It was a moment that blended personal loss with collective grief. Liverpool has always been at the center of Ian Rush's life, shaping his identity on and off the pitch. Moments like these reveal how deeply connected former players remain to the club. When someone linked to Liverpool is lost, it affects the entire family surrounding it. Rush now carries the weight of memories instead of celebrations. The stadiums, the chants, and the glory feel distant when faced with real-life pain. Football becomes secondary when loss enters the picture. Throughout his career, Ian Rush was known for resilience, determination, and mental strength. Those same qualities are now being tested in a very different way. Grief does not fade quickly, and it does not follow a schedule. It stays quietly, changing the way a person views the world. Rush's challenge now is not to overcome grief, but to live alongside it. Strength in moments like these is measured by endurance, not achievement. This period in Ian Rush's life reminds us that football legends are human beings first. Behind every iconic moment is a person capable of deep emotion and vulnerability. Fans often celebrate goals and trophies, but moments of loss show a different side of greatness. Rush's story now reflects the shared humanity between players and supporters. Grief connects everyone equally, regardless of status. It is a reminder that football is built on people, not just results. As time moves forward, Ian Rush will continue to honor the memories of his brother Geraldine Diogo Jota. Their presence will remain part of his journey, shaping how he reflects on life and football. While the sadness may never fully disappear, it becomes part of a larger story of love and remembrance. Rush's legacy is not only defined by what he achieved on the pitch, but by how he carries himself in moments of loss. In silence and strength, he continues to inspire. Ian Rush has described this phase of his life as one of the most difficult he has ever experienced. The loss of his brother Gerald reopened wounds that never truly heal, and the timing made the pain even heavier. As he was helping his family with funeral arrangements, his emotional strength was already stretched thin. Grief had taken over his daily life, leaving little room for anything else. It was during this fragile moment that more devastating news arrived. For Rush, the weight of loss suddenly doubled. The news of the tragic car accident in Spain that took the lives of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva in July 2025 hit Ian Rush hard. It was not just another sad headline for him. It was deeply personal. Liverpool players, past and present, are part of a shared family, and Rush has always felt that bond strongly. Learning about the accident while mourning his own brother made the pain unbearable. He described the moment as shocking and heartbreaking. It felt cruel and unfair. Rush later spoke openly about how these events resurfaced memories of past trauma, especially the Hillsborough disaster. He explained that grief has a way of stacking itself over time rather than fading away. The sudden loss of Jota and his brother reminded him of how quickly lives can be taken. Those memories from 1989 came rushing back without warning. Hillsborough was not just a historical event to him, it remains an emotional scar. The recent tragedy felt like reopening an old wound. In emotional social media tributes, Ian Rush expressed his sorrow with honesty and humility. He described Diogo Jota as a real down-to-earth person and a real gent, words that reflected genuine admiration. Rush did not speak as a legend or former player, but as a human being grieving a loss. His messages carried pain, respect, and deep sadness. Fans could sense how personal this loss felt to him. It was grief spoken without filters. Although Rush was invited to attend Diogo Jota's funeral, he was unable to go. His own family's bereavement made it impossible for him to travel at that time. This decision was not easy, and he expressed regret about not being there in person. Still, his absence did not mean emotional distance. He remained fully connected in spirit and support. Sometimes grief forces painful choices. Rush also shared empathy for the current Liverpool squad, acknowledging the emotional burden placed on them. He openly stated that it must be incredibly hard for the players to simply get on with the job. Footballers are often expected to perform regardless of circumstances. Rush reminded everyone that they are just human beings at the end of the day. Loss affects them the same way it affects anyone else. This honesty resonated deeply with fans. The Hillsborough disaster of 1989 remains one of the darkest chapters in Liverpool's history, and Ian Rush has never stopped carrying its weight. 97 fans lost their lives on a day meant to celebrate. Football Rush has spoken many times about the lasting impact of that tragedy. The pain did not end when the stadium emptied. It followed the club, the players, and the families for decades. Hillsborough is not a memory, it is a presence. Rush has said that the recent loss of Diogo Jota and his brother felt like a painful echo of Hillsborough, not because the events were the same, but because the grief felt familiar. That shared sense of shock, injustice, and sadness returned. For him, it highlighted how deeply trauma stays embedded within the Liverpool family. Tragedy leaves fingerprints that never fully fade. Every new loss awakens the old ones. Another tragedy that shaped Ian Rush's life was the Heysel Stadium disaster in 1985. He was part of the Liverpool squad present for the European Cup final against Juventus. 39 people lost their lives that night, turning a football occasion into a nightmare. Rush has often recalled the heavy silence that followed. It was a moment that changed everything. Rush described the team bus after the Heysel match as being filled with an eerie quiet. There was no celebration, no discussion of the game. The players understood immediately that football no longer mattered. Manager Joe Fagan addressed the team with words that stayed with Rush forever. He told them the result meant nothing because lives had been lost. That moment reshaped how Rush viewed football and responsibility. The Heysel tragedy haunted Ian Rush long after his playing days. It taught him that football exists within society, not above it. Loss on that scale alters perspectives permanently. Rush carried those lessons throughout his career and beyond. He never separated success from humanity. Moments like Heysel and Hillsborough formed the emotional backbone of his character. After retiring as a player, Ian Rush faced challenges in management that tested him differently. His brief time as manager of Chester City between 2004 and 2005 was deeply frustrating. The experience lacked stability, trust, and respect. When his assistant was sacked without his knowledge, Rush felt undermined. He chose to resign on principle, rather than compromise his values. That managerial experience pushed Rush away from pursuing football management as a long-term career. It was not the pressure of results that bothered him, but the lack of integrity behind the scenes. Rush has always valued honesty and loyalty. When those values were violated, he walked away. It was a difficult but defining decision. Even during his playing career, Rush experienced setbacks that challenged his confidence. His move to Juventus in 1986 was far from smooth. The foreign player restrictions and cultural differences made adaptation difficult. For the first time, Rush felt out of place. It was a humbling experience for a player used to dominant Slovene. In a new country and adjusting to a different style of football tested him mentally. Rush has spoken about feeling isolated during that period. While not a tragedy, it was a moment of personal struggle. It reminded him that success is never guaranteed. Growth often comes through discomfort. All these experiences, personal loss, collective tragedy, professional disappointment, have shaped Ian Rush into the man he is today. They explain the depth of emotion he shows in moments like the loss of Diogo Jota. His grief is layered, informed by decades of pain and remembrance. He carries history with him wherever he goes. That history speaks through his words. Ian Rush's story is not just one of goals and trophies, but of endurance through heartbreak. The recent tragedies have reminded him, and everyone watching, that football legends are shaped as much by loss as by success. His honesty in grief reflects strength, not weakness. Through sorrow, he continues to represent dignity, empathy, and humanity, and that may be his most lasting legacy. Ian Rush's journey reminds us that even the greatest football icons carry invisible weight. Behind the goals, records, and legendary status is a man shaped by loss, memory, and resilience. His recent experiences show that grief does not discriminate, and fame offers no protection from pain. What defines Rush now is not what he achieved on the pitch, but how he continues to face life with honesty and dignity. Moments like these reveal the true meaning of football family. Liverpool has always stood for unity, shared emotion, and collective strength, especially in times of tragedy. Through Rush's words and reactions, we see how deeply connected past and present remain. Loss does not divide generations, it brings them closer. In grief, the Liverpool family stands together as fans. It is important to remember that players are not machines built only to perform. They feel loss, shock, and sadness just like anyone else. Ian Rush's empathy toward the current squad reflects this truth. Football pauses in moments of tragedy even if the schedule does not. Compassion matters more than results. Stories like this deserve to be heard, remembered, and respected. If this video helped you see Ian Rush and football from a deeper perspective, take a moment to support the channel. Liking the video helps share these stories, and subscribing ensures you don't miss future content that goes beyond the scoreboard. Football history is filled with triumph, but it is also filled with moments of silence. The tragedies that shaped Ian Rush's life remind us why respect, remembrance, and humanity must always come first. These moments stay with us, shaping how we view the game and each other. They deserve space and reflection as time moves forward. The memories of those lost will remain part of the Liverpool story. Ian Rush continues to carry those memories with quiet strength, honoring them through his words and actions. His story is a reminder that resilience is not about forgetting pain but learning how to live with it. Thank you for watching and taking the time to listen to this story. If you believe football is more than just a game, share this video with others who feel the same. Leave your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more meaningful football stories. The controversy between Arsenal legend George Armstrong and manager Terry Neal is one of the club's most uncomfortable internal battles. So before we dive in, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more deep football stories. This clash wasn't about trophies or tactics, but about respect, authority, and broken trust. Armstrong versus Neal became a symbol of how even club legends can fall victim to managerial power when relationships turn personal rather than professional. The breaking point reportedly came in December 1977, when George Armstrong missed a required Christmas appearance at White Hart Lane. What seemed like a minor issue quickly escalated, as Terry Neal viewed it as a serious breach of discipline. From Neal's perspective, no player, regardless of status, was bigger than the club, and Armstrong's absence was seen as open defiance. George Armstrong, however, felt deeply disrespected by the way the situation was handled. After years of loyal service and iconic performances for Arsenal, he believed he deserved understanding rather than punishment. To Armstrong, this wasn't about skipping an event, but about a manager failing to recognize the human side of a club legend who had already given everything. Terry Neal, on the other hand, was trying to assert control during a difficult managerial period. Arsenal were inconsistent, pressure was mounting, and Neal believed discipline was essential to maintaining order. In the Neal versus Armstrong conflict, the manager chose authority over sentiment, a decision that would ultimately backfire in the court of public opinion. As tensions grew, Armstrong found himself increasingly isolated from the squad. What made the situation worse was the silence from the club hierarchy, who failed to step in and mediate. The lack of support signaled that the manager's word carried more weight than a player's legacy, no matter how historic that legacy was. The fallout was painful for Arsenal fans, many of whom sided with Armstrong. Supporters saw him as a symbol of loyalty and humility, while Neal was viewed as cold and inflexible. This wasn't just Armstrong versus Neal anymore. It became tradition versus authority, emotion versus control, and fans versus the modern managerial mindset. In the end, George Armstrong left under a cloud that never should have existed. The controversy remains a reminder that football isn't only won on the pitch, but also lost behind closed doors. Armstrong versus Terry Neal stands as a lesson in how mishandled relationships can damage reputations, fracture clubs, and turn legends into casualties of power struggles. This disagreement ultimately marked the end of George Armstrong's long and devoted playing career at Arsenal. After 15 seasons of service, the relationship between club legend and manager had deteriorated beyond repair. What made the situation especially painful was that this was not a gradual decline, but a sudden rupture caused by one incident that spiraled out of control. Armstrong's exit felt abrupt, unfair, and deeply personal rather than purely football-related. At the center of the controversy was a mandatory club appearance scheduled around Christmas 1977. George Armstrong failed to attend the event, an action that immediately caught the attention of manager Terry Neal. In an era where discipline was rigidly enforced, Neal viewed attendance as non-negotiable. The absence was not treated as a misunderstanding but as a serious violation of club rules. Terry Neal's response was firm and uncompromising as manager. He believed that maintaining authority was essential, especially during a challenging period for the club. Despite their shared history as former teammates, Neal chose to act strictly as a disciplinarian. To him, allowing Armstrong leniency would undermine his control over the squad. For George Armstrong, the punishment felt humiliating. He had been one of Arsenal's most loyal servants, rarely injured, rarely controversial, and consistently professional. Missing one appearance, in his view, did not justify the severity of the reaction. The lack of private dialogue between player and manager only deepened the sense of betrayal. What hurt Armstrong most was not the discipline itself, but the absence of empathy. After years of sacrifice, He expected understanding rather than confrontation. The issue quickly shifted from a missed event to a breakdown in mutual respect. At that point, Armstrong no longer felt valued as a person, only judged as an asset. The fallout escalated rapidly, creating a permanent rift between Armstrong and Neil. Communication between the two reportedly became strained, if not completely severed. Once trust was lost, reconciliation seemed impossible. Arsenal's dressing room atmosphere suffered as a result, with players aware that even legends were not immune. Club officials failed to step in and defuse the situation. Instead of mediating, Arsenal's hierarchy allowed the conflict to reach a point of no return. This silence was interpreted by Armstrong as a lack of institutional support. It became clear that the manager's authority would not be questioned, even at the cost of losing a club icon. Soon after, the unthinkable happened. George Armstrong was transferred to Leicester City for a fee of just £15,000. For a player who held a then record number of appearances and defined an era, the transfer fee symbolized how abruptly his value had been diminished. The move shocked supporters who never imagined Armstrong leaving under such circumstances. For Arsenal fans, the transfer felt like a betrayal of tradition. Armstrong was not just a player, he was part of the club's identity. His departure exposed a growing tension between football's emotional heritage and the cold pragmatism of modern management. Supporters overwhelmingly sided with Armstrong. Adding complexity to the story were rumors suggesting Armstrong may have been facing financial difficulties at the time. Some speculated this contributed to tensions with the club and manager. However, most credible reports continue to cite the disciplinary issue as the primary cause. The financial angle remains unproven, and secondarily, what remains undeniable is that the conflict was mishandled. A simple conversation could have prevented years of resentment and an unwanted exit. Instead, pride, authority, and silence dictated the outcome. Armstrong's career at Arsenal ended not with a farewell, but with lingering bitterness. At Leicester City, Armstrong continued his career, but it was clear his heart remained at Arsenal. The move felt more like exile than opportunity. While he remained professional, the emotional scars from his departure never fully healed. His story became a cautionary tale for players and managers alike. Over time, Terry Neal's managerial legacy became increasingly scrutinized. While discipline is necessary, critics argue that Neal failed to balance authority with compassion. The Armstrong episode is often cited as an example of leadership that prioritized control over human connection. Years later, a form of reconciliation quietly took place. In 1990, George Armstrong returned to Arsenal as a reserve team coach under manager George Graham. The appointment signaled a symbolic healing, even if the past was never openly revealed. Armstrong once again walked the halls of the club he loved as a coach. Armstrong was respected and admired by young players. His humility, work ethic, and deep understanding of Arsenal's culture made him an ideal mentor. Unlike his playing exit, his coaching return was warmly embraced by fans and staff alike. George Armstrong held that role until his death in 2000, restoring his place within the Arsenal family. The club and its supporters never stopped adoring him. His legacy endured beyond controversy, beyond conflict, and beyond managerial decisions. Today, George Armstrong remains an Arsenal legend, remembered for loyalty, consistency, and quiet greatness. The controversy with Terry Neal serves as a reminder that football history is shaped not just by goals and trophies, but by relationships. Armstrong's story proves that legends may leave, but they are never forgotten. In the end, the story of George Armstrong and Terry Neal is less about a missed appearance and more about how fragile trust can be in football. One decision, handled without empathy, was enough to sever a relationship built over years. It reminds us that authority without understanding often creates lasting damage. George Armstrong's departure left a scar on Arsenal's identity. A player who symbolized loyalty and consistency deserved a farewell worthy of his service, not an abrupt exit clouded by conflict. For many fans, this moment marked a shift away from the values that once defined the club. Terry Neal's stance showed the harsh reality of football management. Discipline is necessary, but when applied without balance, it can alienate those who have given everything. The Armstrong episode remains a lesson in leadership, highlighting the cost of prioritizing control over compassion. What makes this story endure is Armstrong's dignity. He never publicly attacked the club or the manager, choosing silence over bitterness. That restraint only strengthened his legacy, proving that character often speaks louder than controversy. His return to Arsenal as a coach completed a quiet circle. While the past was never fully erased, it was softened by time, respect, and recognition. The fans' continued admiration showed where their loyalty truly lay. George Armstrong's name remains woven into Arsenal history, untouched by one painful chapter. Legends are defined not by how they leave, but by what they give, and Armstrong gave everything. His story stands as a reminder that loyalty should never be disposable. Ultimately, Armstrong versus Neil is a cautionary tale for modern football. Behind every decision are people, not just rules. And when football forgets that truth, even its greatest legends can be lost too soon.
Private to his right. Foul. Repcar. Cards coming out. Number 2, Repcar, pushed away angrily by Davids. He's been booked. Finger pointing here. Referee right on the spot. And Davids won't leave it alone. In fact, the referee is pushing Repcar away. Was certain.
Pierluigi Collina is widely regarded as the greatest football referee of all time, known for his commanding presence, intense focus, and unmatched control on the pitch. From the earliest days of his career, he stood out not just for his decisions, but for the authority he carried in every match he officiated. His journey took him to the very top of world football, including finals and high-pressure international games. Players and managers alike respected him for his fairness and confidence. Yet behind the success and admiration was a career shaped by unexpected challenges. These moments would later become key parts of his story. One of the most personal struggles Collina faced was the onset of severe alopecia at a very young age. He began losing his hair in his early 20s, long before becoming a global figure. The condition permanently altered his appearance and made him instantly recognizable on the field. Early in his career, this drew criticism and unwanted attention. Rather than allowing it to weaken him, Collina embraced his look. Over time, it became a defining feature of his intimidating and authoritative presence beyond his appearance. Collina's refereeing ability is what truly set him apart. He was respected for his consistency, discipline, and deep understanding of football. Even in the most heated matches, he remained calm and in control. His communication with players was firm but clear, earning their trust. From domestic leagues to European competitions, Collina set a standard few could match. His performances quickly established him as the best referee of his generation. Despite his excellence, Collina's domestic career in Italy came to an abrupt end in 2005. He was forced to step away from Serie A due to a conflict of interest involving sponsorship regulations. This decision had nothing to do with his on-field performance or integrity. Many fans and experts believed Italian football lost its finest official far too soon. The situation was controversial and disappointing for someone at the peak of his abilities. It marked a premature conclusion to his top-flight Italian refereeing career. Even after leaving Serie A, Collina's influence on football continued to grow. He remained deeply involved with UEFA and FIFA, contributing at the highest levels of the sport. His experience made him a key figure in referee education and development. Collina helped shape modern officiating standards around the world. Instead of being remembered for how his domestic career ended, he expanded his legacy beyond the pitch. His authority extended into leadership and mentorship roles. Pierluigi Collina's career is a powerful example of resilience and professionalism. From personal struggles with alopecia to a forced early retirement at home, his journey was far from easy. Yet he turned adversity into respect and lasting influence. Today, Collina is remembered not just as a referee, but as a symbol of integrity. In football, his legacy proves that greatness is defined by character as much as success. Few officials in sports history have left such a lasting mark. Pierluigi Collina's career often felt less like a smooth journey and more like a constant one-on-one battle, where integrity stood on one side and powerful external forces stood on the other. Much like a tense football duel between two elite players, every phase of his career carried pressure, scrutiny, and consequences. While fans saw confidence and control on the pitch, behind the scenes, Collina was navigating challenges that tested his principles and resilience. His story is not just about refereeing matches, but about standing firm when the game around you is trying to pull you apart. This underlying tension defined his legacy as much as his whistle ever did. The most dramatic confrontation came in August 2005, when Collina's legendary Serie A career was suddenly brought to an end. At a time when he was still considered the best referee in the world, Italian football made a decision that shocked fans and experts alike. This was not a decline caused by mistakes or age, but a forced exit driven by off-field circumstances. It felt like removing a star player in their prime for reasons unrelated to performance. For Collina, this moment marked the beginning of his greatest professional conflict. At the center of this controversy was Collina's sponsorship deal with the automotive company Opel. As a globally recognized referee, Collina had commercial value, and the deal reflected his stature in the sport. However, Opel was also a primary sponsor of AC Milan, one of the most influential clubs in Serie A. This connection immediately raised alarms within Italian football governance. The issue was no longer Collina's conduct, but how his neutrality might be perceived. The Italian Referees Association viewed the situation as an unacceptable conflict of interest. Even though there was no evidence that Collina had ever shown favoritism, perception became the deciding factor. Football is a game where trust is everything, and the fear was that any decision involving AC Milan or their rivals would be questioned. This turned into a battle between proven integrity and institutional caution. Collina found himself judged not by his actions, but by assumptions. The ruling that followed was firm and unforgiving. The Italian Football Federation informed Collina that he would not be permitted to referee top-flight Serie A machos under these conditions. For a referee of his caliber, this restriction effectively removed him from the elite level. It was like telling a world-class player they could no longer compete in the top league. Faced with this reality, Collina had a choice to make. Rather than accept limitations that would quietly diminish his career, Collina chose to resign from Serie A entirely. This decision reflected his character and self-respect. He refused to let his legacy fade under constraints he believed were unjust. His resignation ended one of the most respected domestic refereeing careers in football history. The match ended not with a final whistle, but with a forced substitution that many felt was unnecessary. After his resignation, Collina officiated only a small number of matches. These included charity games and one final competitive appearance in a Champions League qualifier. While symbolic, they served as a farewell to on-field refereeing at the highest level. His presence was still commanding, but the era was clearly closing. Italian football moved on without its most authoritative official, leaving behind a sense of loss. Long before this professional conflict, Collina had already been fighting a personal battle that shaped his identity. Early in his career, he developed a severe form of alopecia, resulting in the complete and permanent loss of all his hair and facial hair. This condition emerged when he was still a young referee, long before fame or respect arrived. It was a quiet struggle that had no quick solution at first. The condition was simply a health issue, but in a sport built on visibility it quickly became something more. Collina's bald appearance made him instantly recognizable, and not always for positive reasons. Early reactions ranged from curiosity to mockery. Yet instead of allowing this to weaken him, Collina leaned into it. He refused to hide or explain it. Over time, what began as a personal misfortune transformed into one of football's most iconic images. Collina's intense stare, combined with his bald head and calm authority, created an intimidating presence. Few players dared to challenge. His appearance became a psychological advantage. It was Collina versus Dessor, and his presence alone often restored control before conflicts even began. Another major confrontation occurred during the era of the Calciopoli scandal, one of the darkest chapters in Italian football. Powerful figures attempted to influence refereeing appointments and outcomes behind the scenes. Luciano Maggi, the central figure in the scandal, openly targeted referees who could not be controlled. Collina became one of those targets. In intercepted phone calls, Maggi complained that Collina and fellow referee Roberto Rossetti were too objective. In a corrupt environment, fairness became a problem. This revealed the immense political pressure referees faced at the time. It was a battle between manipulation and neutrality, and Collina refused to compromise. Because of his integrity, Collina emerged largely untouched by the formal consequences of the scandal. While many officials and executives were exposed and punished, his reputation remained intact. This further solidified his standing as an incorruptible figure in football. In a system where many bent under pressure, Collina stood firm. After stepping away from active refereeing, Collina transitioned into leadership roles within UEFA and FIFA. The battlefield changed, but the struggle continued. He focused on referee development, technical standards, and protecting the integrity of officiating. His influence extended far beyond individual matches. He became a guardian of refereeing principles. In these roles, Collina has spoken openly about the abuse referees face at all levels of the game. He famously described such abuse as a cancer that kills football. This statement reflected his belief that officials are constantly under attack, often unfairly. It became referees versus hostility, and Collina chose to be their voice. Pierluigi Collina's story is ultimately about conflict, resistance, and resilience. From personal health challenges to political pressure, from forced retirement to global leadership, every phase felt like a head-to-head battle. He didn't win every fight, but he never lost his principles. Like a legendary player remembered for defining moments, Collina is remembered for standing his ground. His legacy proves that true authority comes not from power, but from integrity.